Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 4 of the Sports Corner. I'm your host, JB, here with my co-host.
J3.
We got a great draft special podcast for you guys. We got some great minds in the building. Special guest, Coach Mason Dunn. He's a great football mind, head coach or defensive coach here at
Head coach
SBU.
one day.
Yeah, one day. One of the best football minds I've been around. Also, we have Kellen Curtis here. He plays safety. Definitely one of the smartest football players I play with. His knowledge, extends further than just the field. So they're here to give some different perspectives surrounding the draft. We'll talk about things like top prospects at different positions, potential top 5 picks, players with highest ceilings and floors, and also NFL team needs. So we're gonna get started. We got a QB heavy draft this year. We got players like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, JJ, Bo Nix. Some have said it could be one of the greatest QB classes of all time. But with a lot of hype, obviously, it is drawing comparison to the 2021 draft class that featured Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones. These are QBs who many consider as like buzz or underperforming. So, how do you guys feel about the future with the different prospects we have this year? Do you feel that they will be buzz, or you feel a lot of them have good potential to be great quarterbacks?
Go ahead, Kellen.
I think there'll be max 3 true starters that will actually be like starters throughout the whole careers and everything. I'm gonna be honest.
For sure.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the QB class is deep in talent, but at the NFL, it's rarely ever a talent thing. It's always a fit thing. So I think you look at which teams are ready to nurture a young QB.
Mm-hmm.
That'll tell you how many have a chance. So it's less about the guys or the Jimmies. It's more about the situations that they're going to land on.
I feel that because you could say that about like C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young last year.
Agreed.
Like what could have been different if they were switched, things like that. So it definitely does matter where you're landing at.
Maybe even the Brock Purdy effect.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly.
I'm saying.
Like, get picked last, end up in a great situation. So, the first quarterback we're going to talk about is obviously Caleb Williams. He's one of the big names, if not the big name, in the draft right now. He had a 68.8 completion percentage, 3,633 yards, 42 touchdowns, 31 passing, 11 rushing, and only 5 interceptions. He also won the 2022 Heisman. And so, what are you guys' just overall impressions of Caleb Williams as a quarterback, talent-wise, play style, things like that?
I think he's got a very high ceiling. Obviously, the off the field has always been the question mark for him, not necessarily from a negative standpoint, but just because he knows what he is. And I think that's kind of the thing that scares a lot of NFL organizations or decision makers is a lot of times you see teams, they want a guy that's going to fall in line. I don't think Caleb Williams fits that mold. But with the modern era athlete, I think that's kind of what young athletes are looking up to. So he's the first NIL QB that you guys have seen. So I think it'll be a unique opportunity for him to come in. But I think he's got all the talent in the world. I don't see why if things don't go his way, he couldn't be an MVP type player further down the road.
Yeah, for sure. It's big to point out that it's the first. This is the coming wave of the NIL athletes, players who know their worth because of how they were paid in college. So maybe they could come into the league a little less humble than usual. What are your thoughts about him as a quarterback?
As a quarterback, like as true like a football player, like he has a really high ceiling, and I think that he could definitely be like a starting quarterback 100%. I think he can lead a team, and I think we see with his high touchdowns, low interceptions that he's efficient as well. So that's a big thing in the NFL is being an efficient quarterback, and keeping your turnovers low is huge. And I think as a leader, I think he'll do a good job. I think he knows how to control like the media, and he's experienced lots of media presence, and I think that won't be something new when he goes in the NFL. So I think he'll know what is going on, and he'll know how to feel and how to go about different situations.
Mm-hmm. I've liked Caleb Williams since I saw him as a freshman at OU. I remember watching that OU Texas game. That was when I first knew who he was. We were down by, I don't even remember, but it was a lot. And then he comes in, rushing touchdown, starts throwing the ball all over the place. And this is just as a freshman, his first taste, you know what I mean? So being able to take over the reins at a young age, go against a heavy team, that showed me a lot about him. You got any thoughts about him, Hart?
Yeah, I feel like his play style translates, and like it'll never be a talent issue with him. So like his floor is to be a starter, and his ceiling is to really be a Hall of Fame player. And I think players will love to play with him, which will help him in the locker room because he's scrambling, he's keeping his eyes down the field, he's finding his receivers. So any receiver would love to play with him, and I think he's going to be, the leader of this new generation of quarterbacks that we're starting to get. So, I mean, talent, play style, everything translates, and you got everything you want in a quarterback.
For sure. You touched on him as a leader. Do you think overall first year he'll be viewed as a good locker room guy, good leader. I know one of the Bears players, I believe Jalen Johnson, the corner, he said he's gonna have to come in and earn his respect.
Yeah, I think about it's all about how the media tries to portray it because we really don't know what goes on inside of the locker room because we got guys in the NFL or NBA that have bad reps as teammates, but their personal teammates come out and say that this is a great locker room guy. So it's all about how the media tries to spin it on him. But when it comes to being inside of the locker room, I think he comes in and does his job. He knows what he's getting himself into. He's a smart kid. So I think he'll be a good locker room guy inside the locker room. Now, how the media decides to spin it on him, that's up to the media.
Yeah, that is true because a lot of even former OU players, which is a team that he left, even only had good things to say about him. So that really shows you the type of guy he is. What do you guys think about could be his first year outlook? I know he could potentially be going to the Bears, and they've been loading up this offseason. So how do you think if he gets picked to the Bears, how could his first year look?
Yeah, first things first, I think he's 100% a Bear. You might as well put the logo on his
Yeah,
chest
might
right
as
now.
well.
Barring something catastrophic at this time within the next 24, 48 hours, he's Chicago's face of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually think Chicago's a pretty good landing spot for him. I think they've seen how other teams within the last 5-10 years have nurtured young QBs by surrounding them early with talent. You don't want to get the QB first and then find the answers. You want to get the pieces first.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to step into a place that at least in their mind have made the right decisions from an infrastructure standpoint, getting a veteran in the slot like Keenan Allen, having a good run game with Khalil Herbert and DeAndre Swift. I think strictly from an X's and O's standpoint, the Bears is going to be a good fit for him. I think the tough thing for them is going to be they're looking at no better than a third-place finish in the NFC North, regardless of how he plays this year, in my opinion, just with how good Detroit is and how young and explosive Green Bay is. So,
yeah, for sure.
I think it's going to be a matter of how can they guarantee to keep Caleb Williams healthy this first year, figure out what other pressing voids they have in the future, but making sure you've done your due diligence on building the right system around him, whether that's personnel in your building or personnel you need to evaluate further in the offseason next year.
Yeah. How about you? You feel like he could break out this year, or he'll have just a steady role?
I think if he goes to the Bears, which he really highly likely will, I think he's going to have a season like C.J. Stroud had this year. I think it's just going to be a blowout season. When you have pieces around you as a young QB who has high confidence, high success in college, it's just a masterpiece for success, honestly.
Yeah, true. And they're kind of, I know with the Texans, they saw how CJ did last year, and then they're able to build on it as he's on his rookie contract. They kind of already took the first step, started building before he even got there. So this is a great situation for him to end up at. I know he gets a lot of comparisons to Patrick Mahomes. How do you guys feel about that, or what are some other player comps you guys can think of?
Pat's a tough one to start off with because he's the best player in the world, and I don't think it's close right now. Obviously, I'm a little
no
biased
disrespect
being a Chiefs
to
fan.
Yeah,
it's just tough. If I was Caleb Williams, I wouldn't want to be compared to him either because nobody compared Pat Mahomes to anybody before he came out. If that makes sense, there was no Pat Mahomes to compare him to. Mm-hmm. Same type of way they'll be if Caleb Williams does play like Pat Mahomes. I mean, he's the second guy ever. Pat Mahomes is a very unique play style.
Sure.
I think in terms of pro comp, like we were talking about a little bit before we went live, was you never compare a guy to just a very good player. You either compare him to a guy that was a bust that didn't live up to expectations or a guy that exceeded expectations. I think, like Jihad was saying, his floor is very safe. I think his floor, the best comp really is Kyler Murray. In my eyes, is at bare minimum you get Kyler Murray. And I think it's from a physical traits. He's built like Kyler. He's a little stockier. He's 6'1", 6'2", 215, 220. Pat's kind of got that weird bowling ball build where he's like not fat, but he's not and then also having the Lincoln Riley thought process, which is obviously the same coach that Kyler played for. I think he's going to come in and see the game the same way Kyler did at a young age. So I think Kyler's his best comp from day one. I honestly think he has a much higher ceiling than Kyler, but I think Kyler's your floor day one, day two. He's the same guy you're getting as you would be if you're in Arizona.
Mm-hmm. I think when you compare him to Pat, the reason why you compare him to Pat is just the archetype.
Yeah.
Pat has defined this new archetype of these off-platform throws, this improviser, playmaking kind of build. And when you see that kind of build in Caleb Williams, you automatically think of Patrick Mahomes. And so that's when you kind of start to compare to them. And I like the Kyler Murray comparison just because of kind of that improviser look. But I think Caleb Williams will be more of a playmaker. I think he's just going to extend plays.
Mm-hmm. And he's got that sneaky speed. Mm-hmm. He can get out of there. He had a lot of long rushes for touchdowns, so that adds another element to his game. But I like that he's not looking for running.
100%.
Like he runs to scramble, but he has the athleticism to get around in the pocket, things like that.
I really feel like he's molding his own archetype. Because there's no one that's like a set player like him. Like you said, that's running, but still looking to pass first and making the plays that he's making. So he's really molding his own archetype into like these new generation quarterbacks that we're talking about.
you also see how much of a football player he is when it was sometime when he was at OU when it was at 4th and 1, took the ball from the running back and then just got the first down. Like that's just a true football play. That's
So
not
when they
necessarily
play
a quarterback play. It's nothing you can prepare for. That's just like being a baller.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
traits like that will definitely translate.
Obviously he's a great player. We know the good things about him, but you guys think of any flaws that they have in his game that he can maybe improve on the next level?
I think the biggest flaw for any rookie QB coming in is the same every year. It's just going to be a pre-snap process is so much different, so much elevated at the NFL level than it is at the college level. Not saying that he didn't play in a great college system, but guys like Kyler and Baker Mayfield clearly had struggles early in their career because you're going from a wide open air raid system to a much more tight end in the core. You're going to face a lot more true man coverage and a lot less grass to throw balls in tight windows. So there's a lot less pre-snap. There's my guy one-on-one. I like a matchup when you get to the league because everybody's got cats. So I think the biggest flaw, not just necessarily for him, but for all rookie QBs that you got to be aware of is the mental hurdle is always real. I mean, a guy like C.J. Stroud's a 1 in 100,000. And even then, C.J. Stroud played at an elite level, but not at a championship caliber level. So I think you kind of got to tailor your expectations. If he comes in and is a top 12 starter as a rookie, that's about all you can ask for. So I think one of the biggest flaws would just be he's going to face a struggle early in those first 4 to 5 games, in my opinion, and just the pre-snap process because that's something that just comes with time and repetition. I don't think it's anything that he has a flaw from a physical standpoint. I think it'd just be mental.
I'm gonna run some things I have, and I want y'all to tell me give your takes on it. So in his 3-year career, he had 32 fumbles, and this often came from like him trying to extend the play and do extra things. Do you think that could just be something that could be coached to the next level and that he has to get rid of, or like you think it'll just get better over time as he learns?
I personally think it's something that's going to be coached out of them a little bit. Just like how we teach scrambling quarterbacks once they get to the league to start sliding, throwing the ball away, things like that. I think he'll kind of get coached out of some of those habits, but at the same time, I feel like that's the kind of player he is, and that's how he's able to make those special plays. So I think it's a
some of those.
yeah, I think it's a mix. It's a mix of him still extending those plays, but coach is telling him like, look, if it's not there, it's not there. Throw it away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, just to add on to that too, I think fumbles is a stat that you can control because it'd be one thing if he was a design rusher in the NFL. No team is going to ask their franchise QB, aside from a guy like Lamar to carry it 8, 10, 12 times. And I do think, too, his fumble number could probably be obviously, I haven't watched all of his fumbles, but I think it could be kind of blown out of proportion because he had to play hero ball the last 2 years at USC. The first thing that the Bears are going to tell him is stay within your limitations and trust the players around you. We've got Keenan Allen, we've got DJ Moore, we've got a run game, we've got Cole Kmet. We have answers. We have get out of jail free cards. We have guys you can trust. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing in the NFL is sometimes the best play you can make at quarterback is by throwing the ball away. So I think there's little process-driven decisions he can make in a game that are going to be coached on him and harped on early throughout training camp. I don't think fumbling is necessarily a ball security issue. I think it's a process issue for him.
Yeah, I think the number will definitely lower in the NFL just because of not only the coaching aspects on it, but I think just as him developing as a player too, he'll understand that turnovers in the NFL are completely different than college. It's a completely different game. It's tight games, and that could be the difference between winning 5 games in a year or 15. So
For sure. We're gonna move on to Jaden Daniels of LSU. This year he put up 3,812 passing yards. He had 1,134 rushing yards, 8.4 yards per attempt, 40 passing touchdowns, 10 rushing touchdowns, and only 4 interceptions with a QBR of 95.6. And he also won the Heisman in 2023.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy numbers.
Crazy
Bro,
numbers,
that
yeah.
season.
What do you guys feel about his play style, talent-wise? Just first impressions of him.
I'm not going to lie to you guys. I think if you told me in 5 years Jaden Daniels is a better player than Caleb Williams, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Jaden Daniels arguably has the highest ceiling of a QB we've seen in a draft in a very long time. I think this season at LSU, obviously the numbers are great, but all these QBs are throwing up great numbers. I think when you turn on the tape, there's not much he can't do from a high-end athleticism standpoint. He's got the throwing talent. He's got high-end throwing talent. He's got high-end decision-making, and he's a high-end athlete. He's a guy that could easily be a Lamar-type runner at the next level. It's just a matter of what an offense is asking for him. I think his ceiling is MVP type player. I think he's a franchise changer if he lands on his feet.
For sure.
I've actually been watching Jaden Daniels since high school when he was playing at Cajun High School. I think it was in either California or Arizona, but I was watching him on YouTube, and I even saw him play at Arizona State. So before he went to LSU, and I kind of see throughout his game he's constantly improving.
Yeah.
And even when we saw him, like not this past season, but the season before that LSU, it wasn't the exact same player as this year, but you see him progressing as a player. And so I think based on the situation that he gets dropped into in the NFL will determine his ceiling and how high he can go. But I think he'll be the best quarterback possible if he sits the first year. I think if he sits the first year, can kind of learn, get up to speed, and then develop. I think that's be the best situation
For sure. Um, Obviously he's a dual threat quarterback. How do you feel his play style will translate into league success? Because obviously there's like quarterbacks like Lamar who have shown us that we can MVP, that they can win MVPs. But on the flip side of that, it hasn't turned into championships or anything like that. So how do you feel his play style could translate to NFL success?
Yeah, one, I think the tough thing for all QBs in today's day and age is that Tom Brady's success has turned Super Bowls into a QB stat, and I don't think that's really the case. I think being a Chiefs fan, I get to watch Pat Mahomes, but we don't win Super Bowls strictly because of Pat Mahomes. There's a lot of big time factors that go into winning a championship. So you don't want to put a situation on a guy like Lamar where your success is strictly measured on championships when that's a team oriented designation or statistic. So I think from Jaden's standpoint, if he ends up as a player like Lamar, yeah, that's money regardless of whether you win Super Bowls or not. You got to do the right things from an organizational standpoint to win, not just bank on a quarterback taking us to the promised land. I don't think anybody in the world in the National Football League specifically has the power to elevate a championship or prevent a team from losing ball games if the other factors are not where they need to be. But yeah, I do think Jaden Daniels at the end of the day has a freakishly high ceiling. The winning is going to come, but like Kellen had touched on, he's going to be a guy that probably needs to be nurtured because of, like you're saying, he's dual threat based. And you look at the transitions from college ball to NFL, a lot of the rookies that have come in and had high success. Cam Newton, 4,000 yards as a rookie. That dual threat can be a crutch or a big benefit. It can either allow him to get to the secondary play where it's just free game. Now we're playing backyard football like he's been doing since he was 5 or 6 years old, or it can be something where he doesn't trust himself from a pre-snap standpoint, and everything turns into a designed run. If he allows it to be a benefit to him, then I think that really raises the level of play you'll get year one. If it becomes something he falls back on a down and down basis, then you're really hurting the product of what you're getting.
Like you're saying, if he uses his running skills as more of everything he does all the time, but less than like a secondary option.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if it's a secondary option, it's a benefit. If it's something that's your only calling card, you don't last in the NFL as a QB with that.
I feel that for sure. You could probably go to a player like Justin Fields, who runs a lot. You know, he often misses reads downfield, things like that. That's something they talked about him. So
I think the biggest thing as like a dual threat quarterback in the NFL is you got to establish yourself as at least a threat in one of your dual threats. You know what I mean? If you're going to run and pass, you have to be really good at running or really good at passing. Like with Lamar, everyone's scared of his run, so they play him differently. You know, he's got the ability to extend plays with his legs. So it's like, okay, so knowing that I got to put a spy on him, or I got to put an extra guy, you know, on the edge or such, you know. And so being able to be a successful dual threat quarterback, I think, in my opinion, is being able to establish that you're really good at one thing and then grow the other part of your game. Yeah, I think that's just the biggest thing for Shane Daniels going forward.
For sure. So first year outlooks. This could obviously depend on the teams that he goes to, but I think if he goes to a team like the Commanders, that'd be a great position for him because they've been building this off since season 2. They got some pieces like I believe they got Austin Eckler.
Yep.
It's a running game, so a good running game will help him. I don't think their O line is too bad. They still got Terry McLaurin out there. I know they just got rid of Curtis Samuel, but they got Jahad Dotson, I believe. So they got some good pieces around him. I know they picked up Jeremy Chin on defense, so they got some good pieces around him. How do you think he could do on a team like the Commanders first year?
Commanders,
if he were to start.
Yeah, for sure. I think Commanders is a great situation. Like you said, they signed Marcus Mariota, so that's a guy playing style-wise and a veteran that's been in multiple systems that can kind of nurture him. Even if he doesn't step in as a starter week one, he's a guy that you can learn from the first 4 weeks, and maybe you get Jaden ready to go by Thanksgiving. You get him for that back half of the stretch. Because we can all be real about the Commanders, there's no expectation for them to win this year. So there's no pressure for him to come in and get them to the postseason. You're at a brand new coach, brand new coaching staff. They understand they've got a 2 to 3 year window to kind of build it the right way. The last thing you want to do is throw a guy out there before he's ready. I think the Commanders is a great landing spot for him. If I'm a young QB, I'd want to play for a guy like Cliff Kingsbury that's going to have all the answers from a QB standpoint in terms of getting the ball out of my hands early, getting the ball to my playmakers, which is what the area is all built around. So they've got multiple options in the receiving game. You add a guy like Eckler that's a check down threat, your get out of jail free card late in the down. I think that's a great situation for him to go learn and be nurtured even more.
Sure. I know you're a Giants fan. What could you see his potential being if he maybe goes to a team like the Giants? I believe they have the number 6 pick.
As a Giants fan, I don't think we should pick a quarterback at the sixth pick. But if he were to go to the Giants at the sixth pick, I think that it would be a good situation for him because the Giants organization would more than likely want to give Daniel Jones that one more chance, and then maybe even potentially after the signing of Drew Lock, maybe giving him the chance, and it also put him with a lot of different quarterbacks with a lot of different skill sets, and so I think he could definitely grow from the various archetypes and different types of quarterbacks that the Giants would have. But I just don't think for him as a player that's the best landing spot. Honestly, I think you look at the Commanders and the Patriots, and I mean, as a player and as wanting to be like these players in the draft, they're definitely wanting to look to go play and be more successful. And I think the Commanders and Patriots bring that more than the Giants.
This goes into my next question. With a team like, if he maybe got drafted to the Patriots, how do you think he would fare? Because obviously at LSU, he had Brian Thomas Jr., he had Malik Neighbors, so he had a lot of weapons out there. But if he goes to a team like the Patriots, they don't have as many dogs at receiver, you know what I'm saying? Things like that. So how do you think he would fare? Because if he goes to the Patriots, he's more than likely starting. Because I'm not sure who they have in their QB room, but I know they just got rid of Mac Jones. So
They brought back Jacoby Brissett, I believe.
okay, so it'd be between him and those two. How do you think he would fare in a team like that with not as many weapons at receiver?
Yeah, I think if I'm a young QB and I'm in this class, I really don't want that call at number 3.
Yeah.
Commanders don't take me at 2. I hope my
Yeah.
phone stays silent. For
Yeah.
a little bit. I don't know if the Patriots is a situation where any young QB is necessarily raising their hand because, like we said, I don't think the infrastructure is there yet because their plan was built in place for Mac Jones 2 years ago. Now their plan is starting back over from scratch. So you don't have the pieces that the Bears or the Commanders have in front of you, at least from an offensive skill standpoint on your roster right now. So not saying that he couldn't go elevated. I think he is the biggest +1 factor in terms of get out of jail free with his athletic ability with the ball in his hands. And that's what you're looking for if you're a team like the Patriots. I don't think there's any way in the world he makes it past the 3rd pick if the Commanders don't take him at 2. I think the Patriots rush the card to Goodell right now. Ecstatic they get a guy like Jaden, but if I'm Jaden, I'm less than excited about going to New England at 3. I'm hoping my agent's got me as much guaranteed money on the deal as we can. So.
Yeah, for sure. No, I feel that for sure. The Patriots not likely a place that other people want to go into. But we also haven't seen this as much where the top 3 picks have been building all offseason, like in the Commanders and the Bears. So this isn't a usual predicament. Next quarterback we got for you is Drake May, North Carolina. This year he put up 3,608 passing yards, 63.3 completion percentage, 24 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, QBR 79.3. Off rip, is there any chance that he takes over that number 1 spot from Caleb?
No.
Yeah, no, I'm not thinking so either. But I did see a lot of things that talked about him possibly being comparable as a player, talent wise, things like that. He does have I've been looking at his film. He does have all the arm talent. He can make all the big throws. He can layer the throws, put touch on them. So I think he's a great quarterback. What do you guys think about him?
I think he's the biggest boomer bust out of all 3 of the 3.
Yeah.
I think his floor is the lowest, but his ceiling is very high as well. I think the traits like we're seeing now with all the QBs coming out, there's none of these guys where if you tell them they're reaching their ceiling, they're not a all-pro type player, just because of how developed QB play has become in the last 5 to 10 years. But like you're saying, I think the biggest thing he's got going for him is he's a big, strong kid with the absolute rifle for an arm. So there's not a throw he can't make.
Yeah.
But you're not just living with the physical talent when you get to
I think he has. When you look at his highlights, he plays well, but when you look at his lowlights, that might be the deciding factor of why he might not be the best quarterback in this class, in my opinion. And maybe this might be kind of a hot take, but maybe not even a top 3 quarterback, is because when he does get rushed as a quarterback, he tends to make poor decisions. And I think in the NFL, you're going to be put in situations where you have Micah Parsons come at you, and that's just different edge rushers. You got Max Crosby, you got all these different. You got Myles Garrett. Like that's not someone you want to make a decision and rush a decision around, and so that's definitely going to be a deciding factor.
And you think the NFL might be a little bit too much for him?
I think it will be.
Yeah.
I think he'll have to have a really good O-line, a really good system.
Really good situation.
Yeah, he's gonna have to just.
I think he's a situation quarterback to where like if he does do well in the league, I think it's more about the system that he's in more than about what he's just doing individually with his own talent. Like of course, like you said, like everybody in this draft has the talent, But with him, I think he really needs to be in a great situation for it to be able to show, for him to be able to flourish.
Back to your point with the pressure, I actually have my notes that he's one of the lower graded QBs when it comes to pressure. He had a 59.2 rating, and his completion percentage drops about 18% when he sees pressure. So, and he also, his footwork tends to get off kilter.
Yeah, back to that point. Yeah, not to go back to Jaden, but I believe Jaden on the metrics I saw, he's the number one QB in college football with pressure. So not only does his athletic ability help him when the play breaks down to turn into a runner, but it also turns him into a decision maker, which is something that you really can't coach at the next level. So yeah, I think that's where the drop off happens between 2 and 3. If the play goes perfectly fine, I don't think there's any throw that Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels can make that Drake May can't make. It's the other 80% of the snaps in the NFL where something goes wrong. I agree. Obviously, I haven't seen those metrics before, but that doesn't surprise me. Like Kellen said, if you turn on the tape of Drake May, there's a recurring theme. Whenever he's heated up, bad things start to happen.
Mm-hmm. And you do see in the NFL, DCs like to target rookie quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah.
They're not scared to get
So
out
it's one of those things where you know you're going to get tested. Can you live up to it? I think that's his biggest mindset going forward.
Sure. And you got all these teams doubling up on D linemen.
So, got to.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. And one thing to point out, I also think he can benefit from a team that has a deep threat receiver. He's great at throwing the deep ball. He actually ranked third amongst all QBs with a 96.8 passer rating on throws over 20 yards. So great deep ball talent. Yeah, that's Drake May. We'll go to Michael Penix Jr. I personally think he's a great quarterback. Do you guys think that the fact that he's been in college so long and has some injury history, he's been through 2 ACL tears, 2 shoulder injuries, do you think the injury history and the age can maybe drop his draft stock?
I think it drops his draft stock, but I don't think it hinders the way he'll play in the NFL. That makes sense. Of course, any coach or GM, if I'm looking to draft that person, that's what I'm putting my money into. Mm-hmm. So of course I'm going to be worried about a player who's had 2 ACL tears and 2 shoulder injuries. But like we keep saying, like the talent is there with him. And I think, he put that on show all year. You know what I'm saying? 4,900 passing yards, 65% completion percentage, 36 touchdowns, 11 picks, 84.1% QBR rating. So I think the talent's there. I think once again the play style translates, but it is scary just knowing his previous injuries. But I think he did come out with a quote the other day saying that you've seen how I've reacted, like how I've done after post injury. So there's a lot of players in the NFL that get in the NFL. They get hurt, and it's their first time really getting hurt, their first time not really playing, and they don't know how to shake back from that. And he's saying, I know how to shake back from that, and I, overcame that. You know what I'm saying? So I think it'll be good in the league.
Okay. Aside from that, what are just your impressions of him as a quarterback overall? And how because I believe they went undefeated last year at Washington.
Until the national championship game.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about his play style and talents as a quarterback?
I think if you look down the road and 3 years from now and you look at the NFL rosters, he's a starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I think he definitely establishes all the deep throws and the accuracy from the level 2, level 3, mid to deep zones. I think that's when you see him really flourish. And when you pair him with receivers like Rome Odunze, you see these just great plays happening. And we saw them all throughout the postseason. We saw them throughout the regular season. And I think he's going to be a good quarterback going down the road as long as the situation is.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I think he's the type of cat to where the reason you're not hearing about him in the conversation really with the top 3 guys is I think his top end stuff doesn't quite equate what those 3 could if everything goes right from an organizational standpoint. But I think he's also a very safe prospect. I think he's very mature. Like Jihad said, he's proven that he can come back from injury, but he's also started anywhere from 40 to 50 games. He's been a multi-year starter going back to his time at Indiana before he even went to Washington. So he's been around multiple programs, had success in multiple programs. Had success this year on a national scale, bringing Washington back to national prevalency. I think he's a very safe prospect, but a lot of times the safe prospects are the ones that NFL teams aren't very intrigued by. They want the home run. They want the Pat Mahomes. They don't want Kirk Cousins. So I think the tough thing for a guy like Michael Penix is he going to get one of these teams to fall in love with him and commit to him?
Do you think he'll be a first-round talent?
Yeah.
Or do you think he'll fall to the second? Because I feel like I can see him falling to the second.
I think we'll figure out what NFL teams really think of him, not necessarily based on where he goes, but if any teams want to make a move up to the end of the first round. Because you remember that's what happened with Lamar Jackson. Yeah. He was a guy that everybody was on the fence. Is he a first-round guy? Is he a second-round guy? Mm-hmm. Ravens trade up at the end of day 1, and they clearly were committed to him, and they've built around him. So we'll know within again like 24, 48 hours what NFL teams think exactly of Michael Penix. If he's a guy that falls beyond the second round, there's not a team in the league that loves him. Because if you're an NFL team that thinks there's a chance in hell that a guy like Michael Penix could be your franchise starter, and you're sitting there at 25, 26, 27, his name's still on the board, you got to commit to trading some draft capital and picking him at the end of day one. Otherwise, looking at a guy that NFL teams are kind of viewing as a safe but not elite type of prospect.
Battling for his position.
100%. Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that because Kirk Cousins was actually my comparison for him.
Yep.
A guy that makes all the safe throws, makes the right reads. He doesn't always do flashy things, but it'll be the right play, things like that. And speaking of Kirk Cousins, I think some good teams that could benefit from him as a quarterback is the Vikings.
Mm-hmm.
They got
100%.
they got a little drought at quarterback right now as they just traded Kirk Cousins, but they still got good talent over there. They still have Justin Jefferson. They just got Jordan Addison, and he's a great deep ball thrower. He led all QBs with deep passing yards with 1,787, and he's very accurate with throwing the ball down the field. So you get him some good receivers to play around that can go get the ball down the field. He'd be a great quarterback for that. What do you guys think of him on a team like the Vikings?
Yeah, I think there's three teams that are in the middle of the first round that will kind of know exactly what they think about the QBs. The Vikings, the Raiders, and the
also the
Broncos.
Raiders as well.
Those are kind of the three right there. I think they're all 12, 13, or 11, 12, 13 right after each other. So I think we'll know exactly what those three teams think of not only Michael but some other QBs we haven't talked about yet. As to are they first round franchise type talents that we can build around. I do think Penix's game. If I'm a young guy again, I'd much rather get drafted by the Vikings at 11 or them trade up to get me at 5
Or 23. They also
or
have
23 than going to New England at 3. I think we
Yes.
can all agree if Penix ended up in a system like Minnesota, he's a very solid
Oh,
starter
yeah.
in the NFL for the next 5 to 10 years. So I think Minnesota's a dream landing spot for a lot of these young guys.
Real quick, this isn't in the thing, but you just mentioned the Broncos. How do y'all feel about them trading for Zach Wilson? What do y'all think about
Why?
that?
I don't think he.
Why? Why?
I did not get
it doesn't,
that.
It doesn't move the pendulum either way.
No.
I still think the same about the Broncos.
They're
Yeah.
still sorry.
I saw something. They might have the worst QB room in the league.
Yeah, it's like Ed Stidham and
It
somebody
got
else.
Zach Wilson as the leader.
Yeah, Chiefs fan, I'm real intimidated. I think I got Greg Denver.
We got to worry about them for a while.
Man,
Yeah, for
my
sure.
grandkids are
Yeah.
asking the Broncos.
Nah, for real.
Might have to relocate.
Man,
Yeah.
bad.
Also want to ask you guys if you think that he'll be good and he could potentially play well in a system that doesn't have as many good receivers because he had Roma Dunze that he was throwing to and most of his receivers that he threw to are in the draft now. So
Yeah, I
I guess
agree.
he
I
would
think
do
that's
something
what
like
keeps
that.
him from being, like I said, in that top 3 conversation is because I think a lot of the teams aren't going to view him as a guy that's an elevator to what you have. I think they're going to view him as a guy that is elevated by the situation, not going to bring up the play around him. So I'd say that'd be the one knock on his game. I don't think he's got that ick factor to where you can just throw Rashee Rice as his number 1. He's going to get you to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. But you see, if he goes to the Vikings, perfect situation.
Yeah, it don't matter.
Perfect
Yeah.
situation. So
next we got JJ McCarthy of Michigan. He threw for 2,991 passing yards, 72.3 completion percentage, 22 pass touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 88.2 QBR. Do you guys agree with the recent hype surrounding JJ McCarthy? A lot of people have been talking about him moving up in draft boards. What do you guys think about that?
I think if you pair him in an offensive scheme where it's 11-12 personnel and where they do work a lot of play action kind of concepts and a lot of deceptive movements, I think that would be best for him and his playing style. As you just didn't see him throw the ball that much. He didn't have to. He won a national championship by handing off to Blake Corum, and you can't get mad at him for doing that because it obviously worked. But I think that he will definitely be a quarterback that he's been a high prospect out of high school. He's been a guy who's always been leading his class when it comes to quarterbacks, and I think he'll be, depending on the situation. I don't think he is going to be probably the most looked after recruit in this whole class when it comes to quarterbacks, but I think he could, but it's not likely.
I think the tough thing about JJ is, like Kellen said, he's played in a very different offense from what a lot of teams are wanting to draft a franchise QB to do.
Mhm.
Teams aren't wanting to invest a top 5 pick in a guy to turn them around and hand it off 20 times a game or to throw 20 attempts in a game. They're looking for a guy to go turn over the keys to the car to. So obviously it's kind of intriguing that his head coach and Jim Harbaugh is now in the NFL. Obviously they've got Justin Herbert. You would be very surprised if the Chargers made a move, but if there's any guy that would be willing to do something
There you
crazy,
go.
it'd probably
Yeah.
be Jim Harbaugh. So there's not many coaches leaving a program after winning a national championship, even if it is taking the NFL job. So I think JJ's tough eval because he's been asked to do a lot of single-sided reads. He hasn't
Mhm.
played in a very in-depth passing game. He's not got many true progressions. Is your first read there or no? And at Michigan, the first read was there very, very often. So they obviously had elite talent throughout the roster. Going to have anywhere from, I saw 12 to 20 guys drafted in this year's draft class.
Yeah.
So they trying to beat Georgia's record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to beat Georgia's record, and it's guys at every room in the roster. It's not like they just were loaded on the offensive line. They had great talent all throughout the roster. So AJ's a tough eval, I think.
Yeah, I had that too. That it's pretty tough to see how he does because obviously he benefited from a great scheme system with Jim Harbaugh as his coach. Um, great scheme, great running game, great play action game line, good receivers around them. So we didn't have to see him do too much. Do you think that he could potentially be struggling if he isn't put into a good situation, or maybe he could be a QB that doesn't see the field year one? What do you guys think about
I think depending on where he gets drafted, I think he should see the field year one. I think he needs some time to really break down what the NFL defense is really going to look like for him. Because like we said, like he hasn't really had a chance to open up his game because he didn't have to. But we really we don't know what he'll be able to do looking at certain defenses and things like that. And I think it's important for a young quarterback to have the game slow down for him first before you just throw him out there.
that?
So I think it'd be good for him to possibly get drafted to a team that has a veteran quarterback for him to follow after.
Look to learn from.
Yeah,
So I got a question. You think he's going top 5?
I don't think he should.
No.
I think the Patriots taking him? I think the Patriots are low-key taking
I can
him.
see the
I would
Patriots
just
taking
He's gonna
him
play in the
or
NFL line like 5 years.
Patriots take him, they're done
Yeah.
for the next role.
But that's the Patriots. I feel like that's just their
Because
style.
like we're saying, like my common recurring theme on these QBs is I don't think he's a force multiplier, and out of all the situations a rookie QB is going to be expected to come and start, the Patriots are the one where you have to have a force multiplier. You got to have a guy that makes every player on the roster, every player on the field
You got to
better.
be a Caleb Williams.
You got to be
Yeah.
a Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels type, in my opinion.
Yeah, see, I had his player comparison as a more athletic Brock Purdy.
Yep.
Because he's not asked to do
I
too
can
much.
see
He
that.
makes the first reads often, but he can put the ball down the field and make the right throws when it's needed.
Colin
Okay.
Cowherd had a great comp for him, I think, in Alex Smith, being a Chiefs fan, because
Mhm.
Alex Smith was a guy that was a bust for the first
Yeah.
5 years of his career. It took a QB whisperer, essentially, in Jim Harbaugh at the time, actually, comes full circle to come to the 49ers and take the pressure off of JJ. Hey,
Yeah.
make the decisions, throw the ball to the tight end, trust on the run game, trust on the defense. You can help us win 10, 11, 12 games, and then we get to the playoffs. It's any man for themselves.
And some advanced stats for him are that he is one of the best third down passers. He completed 42 of 57 attempts with a 193.26 passer rating. And on 3rd and 7, he completed more than 75% of his passes. So that shows you how he does in pressure situations, things like that, when the ball was put in his hands. So we'll just have to wait and see how he does in the league. Bo Nix, we got him coming out of Oregon. I know that's your college team. He put up 4,500 yards, 4,508 yards, 77.4 completion percentage, 45 touchdowns, 6 rushing, only 3 interceptions, with a 91.2 QBR. And he also won the Pac-12 Offensive Player of the Year over Michael Penix.
Crazy word.
Yeah.
Bo Nix got it, man.
Yeah. What's your
Crazy
thoughts
word.
on him?
I'm telling you, Bo Nix got it. He can do everything you need him to do. He can
I
do everything.
agree.
He can do everything you need him to do. I know he's an older quarterback, of course, but it's an old quarterback draft. And if anything, I think that might help him out in the league, just having some more experience. He's been in a couple different systems and everything like that. But I think he got it. I think
Yeah.
he's a top 3 quarterback in this class.
Yeah, I think he's a great quarterback. I think people will maybe put him lower in their things because of the scheme that Oregon runs. They run a lot of screens, RPOs, like simple reads, stuff like that. But when he was asked to flare the arm, show out the arm, he showed it. He can throw on the run, backyard football. He can really do it all at quarterback. What do you guys think about him?
I actually have a question. I was wondering if you think how would he play out if he went to Denver?
I think nobody plays out well in Denver.
Yeah. Caleb
Honestly.
Williams?
Actually,
Nobody plays out well in Denver. I don't think Caleb Williams plays out well in Denver.
Do you think
New
Caleb
England.
Williams would get 8 games in Denver?
8
No.
wins this year in Denver?
Yeah.
No.
No.
yeah, 8 wins is
I don't
No,
think
no
they got-
quarterback gets
I
8
think
wins.
Pat Mahomes gets 9 or
Nah.
10.
Yeah.
As crazy as that
No,
sounds.
nobody works out well in situations. We've seen plenty of quarterbacks go to the wrong situations and their career literally dies. And then from there you have a terrible reputation as a a backup quarterback and you're always fighting for a starting spot, and teams are always looking for a better quarterback than you because they feel like you can't transform their team into what they want it to be. So like going to teams like that, like for me, it really sucks for like a prospect because like you're never really able to show what you can really do. By the time you are, it's really too late.
Yeah, I think the one benefit Denver has going for them is Sean Payton, but even then, Sean Payton's calling plays. You still got to have players running plays.
Yeah.
Players going to win you games on Sundays and Monday nights. So, end of the day, Sean Payton's a great coach. Sean Payton couldn't get Russell Wilson to play at the level they needed to play, and Russell Wilson's a Super Bowl winner. So, the situation in Denver is, again, one of those ones like New England at 3.
Yeah.
Denver, I'm willing to be a Bronco if you're going to show me this is the process we're going to build with the next 3 to 4 years. If you're expecting me to come in and revive the franchise in a year, that's unrealistic. Even for a guy like Bo Nix, like Jihad said, I think one of the biggest benefits that all the QBs in this class have is none of them are 1 year starters. They've all played a lot of snaps. Even the younger guys like JJ McCarthy, that was really a 1.5 year starter, kind of spent a little bit of time. Bo Nix has the NCAA record for starts in a college career.
Yeah.
There's nobody that's seen more than he has in a college career. So I think the 61 starts is something that NFL teams are looking at nowadays. It used to be unattractive to take a 24-year-old. I think nowadays that's the opposite. They know they're getting a mature guy that's probably been a pro for the last 2 to 3 years in terms of his day-to-day process. So I think Bo Nix is going to be a good contributor if he ends up in a situation that's plug-and-play ready.
I'm actually going to disagree.
Mm.
I think that he could benefit from a coach like Sean Payton, that coach Drew Brees. You know, he's coached good quarterbacks. I think he could get good out of him. I think with Russell Wilson, it was more of a personality thing. Like, maybe they just didn't gel well together. But maybe if Sean gets a guy he likes, he can really groom like a young rookie. Because Russell's already established. He's played like this. He's played this play style for years.
They both feel like
can't
they know how to
win.
win.
Exactly.
Yeah,
He's
I got
won
you.
a Super Bowl. So maybe they clash. But with a player like Bo Nix, who's completely fresh, you can just tell him everything he needs to hear. He's going to believe you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're an NFL coach.
Yep.
He's going to listen to what you have to say, be coachable. So I think in a situation with a coach like Sean Payton, he could actually benefit.
I think Payton is a great guy for a QB to play for, but I don't think putting Bo Nix with Sean Payton makes you a 10-win team.
Yeah.
No,
That's
they
my
got
thing.
some
Your
time.
roster is still a ways away. If there was a head coach you'd want to play for, I'd think if I'm a QB, Sean Payton's on that short list of 5 to 8 guys where it's like, yeah, I'd love to get groomed by Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm.
But not to disagree with your disagreement, but I would say I don't think if Bo Nix lands on the Broncos, they're even a 7 or 8 win team.
Yeah.
They're still a ways away.
I think it would just help him like long term career wise.
Mm-hmm.
A player comparison I had for him was a young Jalen Hurts coming out of the league because he had arm talent, running talent. Because Bo Nix can run, but early in Jalen's career, it took him a few years to become that Super Bowl caliber quarterback that he became. But it took him a few years to learn the ropes, get the feel for the game. And then he eventually became good. I think that could be the same kind of outlook for Bo Nix. Maybe he doesn't get to the Super Bowl, but I think he develops his talent in the next coming years and becomes a quarterback.
100%. Yeah, I think the biggest thing Bo's got is his decision making. Obviously, he doesn't put the ball in harm's way. 3 INTs is going to be something that's very lucrative to
beautiful.
a lot of ownership.
This year we also have a stacked receiver class. There's obviously the big 3 when it comes to Marvin Harrison Jr., Romo Dunze, and Malik Neighbors. But there's some receivers outside of them that can also have big impacts in the league. So we're going to talk about a few of them.
Hold on, before we start,
Yeah.
Who's the best receiver in the big 3?
I'm not going to lie to you guys.
And it really depends on how we want to phrase the question.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you
day
guys.
Most
one or
NFL ready now.
career?
Okay, most NFL ready now is different than who I think I would take personally. Most NFL ready, I think, is Marvin, and I don't know if that's up for debate. But I think the best player in 3 years is Malik.
Malik.
Yeah,
Thank
Malik.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I think-
Okay.
I think if he
Anywhere.
wasn't Marvin Harrison's son, I'm not sure if in the last 12 months the media has not spun the same way it's spun for Marvin for Malik. Because you watch Malik's tape, it's absurd.
He's
It's ridiculous.
He's different. Yeah. I think he'll be a great player.
Yeah,
On the
we're
Giants.
probably gonna take some.
Yeah,
heat
he
for
might
that,
go to the
'cause
Giants.
Marvin's the one prospect in the draft besides Caleb where everybody's like,
Yeah.
clear cut number 1. He's been the
Yeah.
guy forever. He's just been the guy forever because you said he's been the guy forever. But
Yeah,
y'all didn't even
true.
give Malik a
Yeah,
chance.
they
Yeah.
didn't. They didn't.
The media really has been feeding us a lot of.
Like I would not be surprised at all. I know Arizona. That's a tough spot to be at when there's a media darling.
Yeah.
You don't want to mess it up, but if you don't take the media darling and Malik Neighbors turns out to be the same player as Marvin, I'm not surprised by it at all. Malik
Yeah.
goes to Arizona at 4 and cuts up.
Yeah,
I'm not.
I think
I'm
it
not
would be crazy
surprised,
if
man.
if he goes to Arizona.
I think Rome's really gonna be like that in the league.
I think Rome's good. I think he just doesn't offer the elite athleticism that a lot of teams
Yeah.
are looking for right now from a true number one. But
Number
he's a
two.
gamer. Yeah, he's a
Great
gamer.
hands,
I think he's a career number 2, but like,
Yeah.
He's either
Solid.
high end number 2, low end number 1.
yeah, I think he's a career number 2.
I saw a comp for him was Larry Fitzgerald, which is an egregious
That's
comp.
ridiculous.
A dude had 1,500 catches
That's
or whatever,
ridiculous.
something crazy. That's what you
That's
can't
like-
compare
that's
this to all
messed
that.
up.
That's
That's
messed up. I like Rome's game, but Roman
Yeah.
ain't my number 3. As hard as that sounds.
He doesn't create
I mean,
a lot of
Romo-
stuff.
I'm not mad at it.
Who's your number 3?
My number 3 is the fellow we're about to start talking about, him, Brian Thomas Jr.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, to start with the receivers, we're going to talk about Brian Thomas Jr. He's 6'4", 205, ran a 4.33, 40.
Crazy boy.
Crazy. 68 receptions this year, 1,117 yards, 17 touchdowns, 17.3 yards per catch. I'll just get your overall overview. I know you said he's your number 3 receiver in the draft right here. Why is that?
One, he's 6'4", 205, runs a 40.
That's a
good-
I think he plays fast on film, but I think I was even a little taken back by his 4.33. I think that kind of legitimized him in my eyes as a guy. If I'm in the top 12 or 15 and I need a true number 1, I have no hesitation taking a guy like Brian Thomas.
For sure. I think he could go to a team like Buffalo. Oh my gosh, and go crazy.
I think he can go anywhere and go crazy.
I agree.
He's a big red zone threat.
Yeah,
Big
big red zone threat. Do you guys have any player comparisons that you can think of for him?
The player comp I've used for the longest, which is an indirect comp, you're going to have to listen to me or work with me a little bit, is Mike Evans. And it's not from a physical standpoint in terms of what he runs. It's in terms of what you're asking him to do on a football field. All of his route tree is on a vertical stem, like we talk about. He's not running the ball, running routes. He's not running drags. He's not running digs. That's not what you're asking Brian Thomas to do. Be a big body. I think he's got obviously a little 2 ticks faster in the 40 than Mike. A little bit less body weight, but he's going to win the same type of routes and the same type of way that Mike Evans does with his elite athletic traits and his elite tracking. I think that's his biggest
great
strength he has. Is he tracks the ball very well through contested catches and just playing the ball itself, regardless of if there's a DB in the frame or not. So I think Mike Evans is high-end comp for him, and Mike Evans has been one of the most productive receivers we've ever seen in the NFL from day one when he stepped on. I think if you're putting Brian Thomas on the field to run slants and run fades, he's got the traits to where DBs can know what's coming and he can still win the rep.
Yeah, for sure. You got anything you want to say about him?
I think I like that player comp. I think my first thing that comes to my mind is like a little bit less physical AJ Brown. The reason I think that is just because he's just going to go up and get the ball. When it gets thrown, he's going to go up and get the ball. I don't know if necessarily he's going to run the same routes as AJ Brown and play the same way. I think it's just going up and getting that ball and just kind of whether they're like he said or like Coach Dunn said, if there's a DB in position or not, he's going to go up and get the ball.
Yeah, I think he's a great receiver. I don't think this is a great comparison, but just based on physicals,
Yep.
I would say DK Metcalf just because we hadn't really seen a guy 6'4" moving like that.
Who'd you say?
Gabe Davis.
Gabe Davis?
Faster Gabe Davis.
Faster, better Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying like vertical
Big-
stand.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I see what you're saying.
vertical stand, like,
Yeah, that big body type.
Yeah.
Like you're
He
saying.
runs a similar route tree as
Yeah,
Gabe Davis too. We saw him a lot of crossing routes, post, deep balls, things like that.
And he worked well off of being a number 2 receiver with a number 1 in front of him.
Yep, I agree.
I think he'll have a.
As crazy as this sounds, Brian Thomas' situation is the exact same as Justin Jefferson's was coming out.
Yep.
He was
had
number 2
Jamar
fiddle to
Chase.
Jamar. Teams were saying this guy's probably a slot guy in the league. And 2 years in, Justin Jefferson was the best guy we'd ever seen do it through 2 years of his career. I think that's the situation is repeating itself at LSU. I'm not saying Brian Thomas is Justin Jefferson. If he's Justin Jefferson, he's the number 1 pick in the draft.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's a first ballot Hall of Fame receiver that, in my opinion, is already in the top 10 in his position, arguably from a talent standpoint ever. But I do think it's kind of eerily similar. Malik Neighbors plays a lot like Jamar, and I think Brian Thomas plays a lot like Jay Jettas when given the situation to run a full route tree.
Yeah.
But I think Mike Evans is a little safer comparison than Jay Jettas.
A good comparison. Do you think he's a top 10 player or top 10 pick in the draft?
Top 10 player, yes. Top 10 pick, probably not. Because I don't know if you get 4 receivers in the top 10. If
No,
he is a
no
top
where he's
10
going.
pick, that means he went ahead of Rome.
Where you want him to go hot?
He's coming.
He wanted bad.
He coming to
The
Pittsburgh.
tough thing for y'all is Cincinnati ain't letting him get past him at 18.
Yeah. We gonna get a receiver though.
Y'all can get it. You hope so.
We gonna get a
Hey, you
receiver.
hope so.
We gonna get a receiver. Hey, this is
Yeah. Next player I
Drew
got.
pick. Who
Adonai
you telling,
Mitchell.
man? He read up 4-3. I said no.
Oh, God, he's one of these two is coming to Pittsburgh.
We got Adonai Mitchell here of Texas, 6'4", 196. Also ran a 4.3 40, 845 yards, 11 touchdowns, 15.4 yards per catch. Do you guys view him as a top 5 receiver
Yes.
this year's draft?
Yes. I think that there's your top 5 right there.
Mhm. Some people, he obviously didn't have the big numbers that other players had, but he was playing with players like Xavier Worthy. You know what I'm saying? He was getting a lot of the time, but even with his lack of production, he showed you everything you need to see on the film.
Mhm.
Like that game against Alabama, that was really his breakout game right there.
yeah.
Went crazy. I think he had like 3 catches for 74, 2 touchdowns, something like that. So, what are your guys' impressions of his game? How he is as a receiver?
I feel like a receiver sometimes it's not always about just the production that you're putting up, but being able to show what you can do. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like he definitely showed what he can do, and it's pretty much everything. I mean, you got the height, you got the size, you got the speed, you got the catch radius, he got everything you need from a receiver to come play day one in the NFL.
My comp for him has been Brandon Ayuk from the start.
Mhm.
I think he's a little bit different frame, but exact same in terms of just elite throughout everything he does as a receiver.
Yeah.
Release package is there. At the catch point, he's there. Yards after the catch, he's there. Runs a full route tree. AD's my dream pick. Fingers crossed. I don't think he makes it to 32. I think
No
the Chiefs
way.
have to get him.
No way.
Again, another guy. These guys are just creatures now, man. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you didn't see 6'4", 200 pounds running 4.35 twice in a class, let alone twice in 10, 15 years. So you got 2 freak shows. I think the receiver position is so advanced right now. I mean, you get a guy like A.D. Mitchell 10 years ago, he's probably a top 10, 15 pick in terms of genetic makeup. He's a freak show.
One thing I have for him is that only one drop on 103 targets in the last 2 years, which is great. He catches everything with his hands. He can run the whole route tree. So I think he could be a great receiver on any team. What type of impact do you think he can make if he goes to a team like St. Louis?
I mean, he makes a great
Oh,
impact.
man.
He'll give us so we'll have more of like a number two receivers kind of offense because we're going to run the ball more anyway. But I feel like it opens up our run game, it opens up our play action. It makes it easier for either Russ or Justin Fields, either way. And he opens up the entire offense. I feel like our offense is very stagnant the past couple of years. And it makes it more free flowing and he gives us everything that we need. Especially with the loss of we lose Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, Deontay Johnson.
Carolina.
So I think that'll be a great pickup.
How do you think you guys will use him on the Chiefs? If he possibly
We'd be
fails?
going for the 3-peat. we're good without him. I love AD. We're good without him. But, I mean, you give a guy like Pat Mahomes, Rasheed Rice with AD Mitchell on the outs. I mean, you're just playing with house money at that point.
Mhm.
And not knocking AD. I mean, AD's going to be a dog wherever he ends up, in my opinion. I think he's a very safe prospect with a very high floor. But with the Chiefs, he's going to step in at 70 or 80 catches and 8 to 10 touchdowns year one.
Yeah.
Do you think he will eventually develop into being a wide receiver 1 eventually? Or do you think he's going to be a stuck wide receiver 2?
I think he's a wide receiver.
I think he becomes. a wide
You think he is
receiver.
off rip?
Maybe not off rip.
I think the tough thing for him is you almost don't want him to be because you look at the elite offenses now, the teams that have a bona fide number 1 don't win.
Yeah.
Like Jay Jettis can't play in the playoffs. Tyreek, I love Tyreek, freak show, can't win in the playoffs. Like the teams that are having success in the passing game, it's almost 1A, 1B type.
Mhm.
So if you put him next to Pickens, you let the DC pick who's your number 1. You don't necessarily have a flavor of the week, so to say. So I think he could be a number 1. The teams that have a traditional number 1 and a drop off from 1 and 2 don't win as many games in January and February as you'd like. So the preference is, he's just an elite ball player on the outside. Is he 1? Is he a 2? It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Why do you think
Yeah,
that
I feel-
is? Just because teams can cut off.
Yeah,
Because once they cut off
I
that,
just
it's
I think it's a
I
crutch.
think-
I think it's a crutch.
I think it's a crutch too. Yeah, it's like when you got a 35 a game scorer and you just defer the ball to him in the fourth. Well, the second he stops hitting and nobody else has hit shots for the last 3 quarters, it don't matter. If I take Tyreek Hill out of the game plan and even though Jalen Waddle's a good player, no one's going to ever confuse Jalen Waddle as the number 1 for the Dolphins. Every DC in the NFL is going to say every week when you schedule Miami, make Jalen Waddle beat us. And so far, guys like that haven't been able to do it. Whether you're a high level number 2 or not, there's not many high level 2s or low level ones that can carry an offense in the NFL. Defenses are now starting to catch up. We're seeing the trend drop in scoring. The game's becoming much more even out from 2-3 years ago when every game felt like it was 35-30. Now we're seeing games in the 20s. I think I heard yesterday, average points scored in an NFL game was 42 points. So you're looking at 20 every game.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing a lot of those true number one receivers are in situations to where it's a lot easier for a defensive coordinator to say, hey, we'll either let Tyreek get his 8 catches for 200, or if we eliminate him, we automatically win the ball game.
Especially like what you were saying in the playoffs. Like a team is not going to let a number one receiver beat them. They're going to force your number twos, your number threes to beat them. So that's why, and you want a number 3 receiver to step up for this one game when he hasn't had to do it for all 16, 17 before that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why like those teams probably have less success when it comes to playoffs.
Would you view the receiver situation in San Francisco and Philadelphia as like 1A, 1B?
That's what I was.
Do you think those are 1-2?
I think it's definitely 1A,
I think
1B in Philly.
And in San Francisco.
San Fran, I think Ayuk's your number one because
Yeah,
most
that's
of
a
his work in the passing game is more of a full Crabtree. But in terms of touches, obviously Debo's getting more touches. So
Yeah.
I agree. That's a great way to put it, Casey.
We got 3 number ones, but we're not gonna talk about that.
Y'all got 3 number ones?
We got 3 number ones.
We got
We got
one.
Tank.
Here we go.
I'm not gonna lie, Tank's not a number one.
Tank's
And
not a number
Nico
one.
Collins not.
Nico's not a number 1.
And
Yeah.
Stephon Diggs can't. Never mind.
That's crazy. That
But they
Nico-
all are like elite number twos. You know what I mean? But they're not number one.
I think Nico's the number 1 receiver.
I think
I think you just throw the ball to Dalton Schultz.
I think
and let-
Stephon might be number one. But I feel like what team would you put Tank on? And he's like
okay,
Carolina.
Carolina.
like what competitive team where you put him on? You're like, yeah, like you are.
We got 2 number
bona
1s
fide
and number 2. How about that?
It depends how many number ones you think there are. See, in my opinion, everybody thinks that there's 32 ones. There's not even 32 ones.
Probably 16.
There's
That's
probably
fair.
15
That's
ones
fair.
in the
I
league.
mean, there's a
where
number
it's
1
like,
receiver on every team, but like
there's a number, but
Breaking stuff out.
I wouldn't put Deontay Johnson as a number one. Like Adam Thielen last year, bro. I don't care if you had 100 catches. You're not a number one.
Like,
Yeah, I
Devontae
feel
Like your
Smith
production
is
is meaningless. It's empty production.
One more question about AD. Who do you think goes first, him or Xavier Worthy?
My personal preference, I don't think it's close. I think AD goes. I know NFL teams love track speed, but
Yeah,
I
they
think
love
track
that
speed
speed.
is just that. It's just track speed. I think AD's ceiling and floor are both much higher than what you're getting with Xavier.
I don't know, bro.
Yeah, I know
Here we
you're
go.
big. I know you're big on Xavier.
I didn't watch the tape on Worthy.
Yeah.
It's bad. Like it's bad.
You know-
Like he really a threat.
You not
Do you
running
think-
from the Big 12 defense?
Like he really a threat.
He's a threat.
He a problem.
Here's
Like,
Every game I've watched, he's broken.
my pro comps. Best case scenario, he's Devontae Smith. Worst case scenario, he's an off-brand Hollywood.
that's basically scenario.
I don't know.
Yeah.
One. The tough thing is name a receiver
Actually,
in the
I don't know.
160s not named Devontae that makes an impact in the NFL from a body weight standpoint. Because now we're not playing in the Big 12. I'm not knocking who we played at Texas, but I am saying in the Big 12, everybody scores 40 every Saturday just by snapping the ball once.
AD was on the same team.
I agree, but the difference is 80's 6'4", 200 pounds and running a 4.3
Yeah.
blank and not 6'1", 160.
6'1", 165.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing that isn't going for him is he ran too fast in the 40. If you look at all time, you look at all the guys that are sub 4.3. There's like 2 that have produced. Is he
But I
is he
feel
not
like-
the next John Ross? Because John Ross is tape in college.
Nah, I don't
He
think
ran
I
his
don't
whole
think
route
his
tape
tape-
compares to Xavier
Yeah,
Worthy's
I
at
don't
all.
think he runs.
I don't
I
think
think he
his
runs
tape-
Crystal
I
route.
don't think his
Ooh.
college tape compares to Worthy at all. I think Worthy is, once again, I think he's his own mode. I think he's a legit game breaker. Like he's not going
I
to be
do.
Tyreek Hill exactly, of course. You know that's a crazy comp, but
That's crazy.
I think he's a game breaker. Like Hill might only need to touch the ball 4 times a game, and he'll get you 2 touchdowns.
And at one time
Like-
he threw it to him, it was 2 yards. It ended up being an 80-yard touchdown.
Like he's a threat to
That's
score
my thing.
every
Is
time he touches the
I
ball.
don't think he is at the NFL level because of his sheer lack of physicality, because of his frame. If he gets to 185 to 190, he's no longer a 4.2. He's a mid 4.3, strictly by science, right?
Yeah.
That's his best chance at longevity. That's where he becomes a Devontae Smith type player. Because Devontae Smith's not playing at 165.
How much Tank Dell weigh? Like 170?
Hey,
Take that 170. Hell of a year, right? He just had 700 receiving yards, 800 receiving
I
yards.
think.
Okay, but
I
look,
think
but
he
look,
puts
that
up-
was
got injured.
that was in
Got injured. 12 games, he's averaging 60 yards a game.
Huh?
And through 12 games, he's averaging 60 yards a game. How many guys in the NFL are we saying are elite or game breakers that average 60 yards a game?
But the impact he was having in those games was big.
He's a bigger deep threat than Tank Dell.
Okay, I have a question. Do we go Xavier Worthy will have a better NFL career or Kadarius Toney?
Oh, Worthy, 100%.
Yeah, Worthy.
So with them kind of being
Even though
kind of the
Kadarius had a
same
Super
like
Bowl.
They're
playmakers
not
in
the-
college,
they're not the
what's
same
going to make
player.
him different?
They're not the same player. KT wasn't running the full route tree. Like KT was just a gadget guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you can really line Worthy up and he'll run the whole route tree for you. He's just 165. Like that's just the only thing about it. He's just 165.
That's why I think you actually can't line him up everywhere, because if you put him on an overhang in the league, he's one shot away from never walking again. As drastic and dramatic as that sounds, like he's got to physically add weight. If he physically adds weight and can play with the same type of tape and tempo in his routes, like you're saying, because he's an elite route runner. There's probably a lot of elite route runners in the league if you let them weigh 165. Physicality standpoint, with how big DBs are nowadays and how much nickels you're seeing that are just playing tight at the line of scrimmage, I think he's a guy that's, one, got to be on the perimeter early in his career. Two, he's got to add weight in order to have a sustainable NFL career.
Talking about nickels, who's the best nickel in the class? There's
man.
only one answer. There's
Oh,
only
man.
one answer.
Yeah, I'll let you go.
Mike
Yeah.
Sancho.
Yeah, it's Mike.
Yeah,
It's Mike.
He's going to be tough.
I think that's.
I think we're going to talk about DBs later in it. We'll get to it. But Mike is my one player that's like, regardless of where I pick him, I got to have him on my roster. If he's a first, end of the first, beginning of the second, middle of the third, he's a one guy. If I'm any GM in the NFL, I want Mike.
That's how it is with
Mike.
defensive players too, because like you just go out there and play defense,
Play ball, dude.
Mhm.
Just play
ball.
ball.
Play here.
Go line
and
up, go
Yeah.
guard him man to man.
Yeah.
Mike,
Good dude.
He's a freak show.
Next receiver I want to talk about, Xavier Legette, South Carolina, 6'1", 219, 4'4", 40, 1,255 yards this year, 71 receptions, 7 touchdowns, 17.7 per catch. What do you guys think of him? First impressions of his game?
Like his game a lot too. Again, this receiver class is absolutely loaded. We've talked
Yeah.
about 6, 7, 8 guys now that are all impact players day one. I think. I don't know if he's ever a true number one. I don't know if he's ever an elite number one. His comp has been. I've seen a couple of teams compare him to AJ Brown. Which, if he's ever AJ Brown, obviously AJ Brown's a one. AJ Brown's a freak show. I think that's best case scenario in an elite situation. But I think
George Pickens.
Pickens. I like Pickens as a comp.
George Pickens.
I can see that. Obviously, he's very physical. There's not many 6'1",
I like Debo.
220. Debo's tough. I think the tough thing with Debo is like a running back.
Yeah.
And
Have you seen this dude run?
He does.
Yeah, but like he don't got that like.
But I don't think you're running outside zone with him.
Yeah.
Does that make
That's
sense?
fair.
Like,
That's fair.
like physically not aligning in the backfield. Debo
Yeah.
physically aligns in the backfield
Yeah.
and is a running back at receiver. I think this guy is more of a running back at receiver.
Some teams that I think Xavier Legette will have a good impact on is maybe the Ravens. Because I know they just lost OBJ, so they're just having even though they just re-signed Bateman, I believe.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
now they just have Zay
I didn't
Flowers
even see that.
and Bateman. Yeah, I think they extend him to a 3-year or something like that.
120, huh?
Whoa!
What?
120?
No, you're
I'm
thinking
thinking
of
of,
Amendola.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
I didn't
But
even
they
name
still-
him.
Is he at like is he
Yeah.
at like 300 yards?
J-Lo?
We done talking about that. Also another team I think could benefit from him is the Saints. They got Chris Olave, but and then they have Shaheed. I
Yeah,
believe.
Rashid
Shaheed.
He's a ball
Yeah.
player.
Yeah, he's a good deep threat guy.
See, maybe that's Xavier Worthy is Rashid Shaheed.
Better than that, bro.
Explosive. I agree, but in terms of sheer athleticism, that's probably his
Okay.
best current comp. Not Tyreek.
Okay.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Very
That makes
accurate.
sense.
I like that. I like that.
Shaheed's a little underrated. Low-key.
He is.
I think
He's
so.
really,
I think so.
he's really a game breaker.
Yeah, yeah.
Like he's really a game. I like that.
Yeah, so they would have a
I like
route
that.
runner and Chris, good downfield threat and Rashid, and then a big body and Xavier Legette. I think he could do good for that. And also maybe a team like the Raiders with Devontae Adams. Maybe have him on the other side. I don't know if they still have Hunter Renfrow, but
No, he's a free agent. I don't think he's signing anybody right now.
okay. Well, yeah, two good receivers like that, I believe, can benefit. What do you guys think?
Yeah, him and Devontae with Jacoby Myers on the inside is a really good trio. That's a really solid trio. I agree. I think he's a high end two right now. If you put him with a vet one,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Need.
Especially a vet one that could like maybe
Teach him the ropes.
teach him some more things,
Yeah.
like maybe refine his route running a little bit, because that is one of the things that people have said about him is his route running isn't as refined. But those big body catches downfield, he's got them all.
like you said, that's why I think he's a great fit with the Ravens because the Ravens see so much zone coverage. Route running is not a priority
issue.
for the
Yeah.
receiving room.
Yeah.
You know, when you're not playing man coverage, it's more about getting the ball in space. So
Exactly.
you put him in the mobile queue with Lamar. That route running suddenly don't become that important. Now you got
Right.
another running back on the field with Legette, so that's a great fit.
Exactly. Anything else you guys want to say about him? We're gonna move over to the DBs. Yeah, I know you guys want to talk about this. We got a great DB draft. One of the top ones we'll start out with is Quinn Mitchell of Toledo. This is a 6-foot corner, 196, ran a 4.33 40, 37 pass deflections, 6 interceptions over the last 2 years. Uh, over the last 3 seasons, 95 rating, career grade outside corner, and only 0.77 yards per snap allowed.
Crazy work.
How do you guys feel about him as a corner? Technique, like just coming into the league, based talent wise, how do you think he is?
Best press ready corner in the draft class, I think.
I would agree.
I thought he was a good player watching a little bit at Toledo, but I think the Senior Bowl where he got to
Reached the
compete
Senior
against
Bowl,
the Georgia Cats and all the receivers that we know are legit players, Xavier Legette's, and he stood out. I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin for making him, in my opinion, the best corner in the class, day one and over the next 5 to 10 years. But yeah, I think all the technique in the world at the line of scrimmage in terms of staying square, playing with two hands, playing with one hand, ability to kick step and maintain leverage. I think the one question mark is off coverage. He's not got the not the trait of falling asleep, but I don't think he's challenged to play much.
Right.
At Toledo, his own coverage, I don't think there was a lot of priority from them schematically. They'd probably be done for their DC. Their DC, and I got a cat like that at Toledo. I'm playing 10-man calls, and Quentin, you shut down that side over there. So.
What do you think about him, Kellen?
I think he's just very sticky. He's always just in a good position. Not necessarily. I know in his senior year, I think he only had one interception, but he had a crazy amount, like 18 pass breakups. So I think he has a good like understanding of like how far away he needs to be from receivers and playing the ball pretty well for like breaking up the pass. I think my biggest thing for him, and I think he just gotta. I want to see how he stacks up against the better receivers, the more athletic receivers. And you saw a little flash in the Senior Bowl, but he's not going against true, wide receiver ones or twos, which he'll be facing in the NFL. And so when he does face that, will he overcome, or will he, have a little bit of a challenges to overcome?
Yeah, I think a knock on him in the beginning was that he was playing lesser talent because he was in the MAC conference. But that Senior Bowl was big for him. He got to compete against some Power 5 guys, show his talent off a lot. One thing that people might say about him is maybe his tackling. Things like that. But I think he can be a great player, really sticky. And as you said with the interceptions, one interception last year, but so many PBUs, it's hard to get interceptions in man coverage.
What's crazy about his interception stat, he had 6 in college and
4
6 in the last 2 years, 4 in one game.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think his reputation kind of preceded itself, like you see, especially at the smaller school level, when any of these teams at that type of level have a player that's that dominant, offensive coordinators start off by saying, we're not even looking there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think interceptions is a stat that you kind of take with a grain of salt.
Do you guys feel like he's day one NFL ready?
Yes.
Or what are some player comparisons? One I had was maybe Derek Stingley Jr.
Ooh, I like that comp. The comp I have is from a guy that was drafted last year, and it's going to be dependent on what a coordinator wants to do, but Weatherspoon, because he's a bulldog. He's a physical guy. He's not going to open his hips. He's going to make you run through his chest. He's going to play his game from a psychological standpoint. He's better than you in his mind every snap. And Weatherspoon was a guy that played a ton in the nickel in college. Day one became a top 3 nickel in the NFL strictly from an ability standpoint. Not saying that's what Mitchell will do, but I think he's the one guy that's NFL ready right now to play all 3 spots, field, boundary, or nickel. And I think that's kind of a height, weight, speed, physicality comp for him would be Weatherspoon, a guy that came in year one and dominated.
Yeah, I think I saw that he was, or a lot of NFL GMs were looking at playing him in the boundary just based on his frame. And I saw a couple of clips of him and just like in some run fits and just the way he was attacking it, and it just didn't feel like that was the right position for him. So I would like to see him at least play a little bit away from the box and just kind of go be on Ireland and just
do what he good at.
Yeah, I think that's where he would best suit the next team that he's on.
I kind of would agree with that. More of a guy who's covering good receivers, maybe less in the box, getting in on the run game. I think he would serve better as like a pure like man coverage guy, things like that. And he did also show that in the college that he could play in the slot, guarding slots and things like that. So he is pretty versatile. Great athlete there, Aaron, cornerback prospect. Next we got Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. He had 5 interceptions last year, 12 pass deflections, 1 forced fumble. 6 foot 196, 4.5 40. What do you guys think about his game? He had played some great comp at Alabama.
Yeah, I was really impressed with him this year. I think his jump from 2022 fall to 2023 was ginormous. I think a lot of people fell in love with Kool-Aid at Bama, and I think within the last really 6, 7, 8 months, Terrion, every time Kool-Aid took a step down, Terrion took a step up. So I don't think it's a knock on Kool-Aid. I think that's more of a bonus on Terrion. I think he had a great fall this year. I think he's another day one starter, regardless where he ends up. Obviously, you're taking a corner or any player in the first round, you're expecting immediately
Right.
to get some returns. But I think he's a very safe prospect. I think he's very pro ready. I don't think he makes it past the Colts at 15.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Yeah, he's a great prospect. He can really line up anywhere too. He line up in the slot, outside. He also made some plays in the backfield with corner blitzes, things like that, getting in the run game.
You know, when Nick Saban coach DB, he's gonna be coach well, man. He's gonna come in a technician.
Yeah,
And I believe Terrion used to play safety, so that's why some of that physicality and playing in the box. So he doesn't have a problem doing that. Coming up attacking.
I think 4.51 was a good time for him. I kind of thought he'd be one of the slower ones. 4.51 is plenty fast for the NFL.
And he got the game speed.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
So 40 times always, a little hard, but the tape is where you're going to see the real game speed. So he got the game speed. It's not like he's just out there getting blurred.
Yeah, because he also has good recovery speed too.
Yeah.
Like there were some times when he also has good technique when he's beat.
Great technique.
Like he'll make
Great
sure he doesn't get his head around. He'll play through the ball in the hands. I noticed that a lot on some on his film too. Not a lot where he was getting beat, but I noticed that on his film too. Teams that I say he could make a good impact on. One of those was the Colts.
Yep.
Because they need some help in the DB room. They still got Kenny Moore, I believe.
Kenny Moore, one of my favorite nickels in the league. They drafted Julius Brents last year, who I think has a very high ceiling, but they need a starter right now. Like I said, I don't think he makes it past them at 15.
For sure. Another team was the Vikings.
Vikings, I can see. I think it depends, if they go QB. If they don't go QB, it's one, a surprise to everybody, but two, I think it would be to address the corner room. One other possible fit would be with the Raiders, and they're kind of in the same situation as the Vikings. So they quarterback. If they don't, you kind of take the best player available. I think he'll be one of the best players available at 12 or 13.
Yeah, for sure. You guys see him as a day one starter?
Yeah.
Sure.
I think his talent translates for sure.
I think he's more so day one ready than Quinion. I just think Quinion's a better player in the long run. But I think him playing in the SEC and playing for the best DB coach, in my opinion, in the history of the game, and Nick Saban, he's going to step in as pro ready gets.
For sure. Next guy I want to talk about, Cooper DeJean. This year he had 2 interceptions, 5 pass deflections, 6'1", 207, 4.42 at pro day in the 40. What are some thoughts about you? I know you have some thoughts, Mason, as a former white cornerback yourself.
He giving us hope, man. He giving us hope.
I'm sure you got some thoughts about his game.
I love his game. I think he's the best zone corner day one, and was just looking up on some coverage stuff the other day. Cover 3 was still the most predominantly played coverage in the NFL. I think for your quarters teams, your 2-high teams, I think he's probably a clear-cut number 3, but I think if you're one of those cover 3 base teams, he's a guy where it's a preference between him and Arnold and what you're looking for the next few years. Also think he's a day one impact at nickel just from a size, height, weight, physicality standpoint. I mean, you watch him play. Obviously, Big Ten receivers, if you're not playing Ohio State, you're probably not seeing as much of the elite athleticism that a guy like Terrion Arnold played against when he was at Bama. But 6'1", 207, running a 4.4 with legit physicality and legit cover 3 traits is something that a lot of teams will covet. So I think a lot of your single high safety teams, again, that's more of a coordinator preference, but your single high safety teams, I think they view him as a true corner. I think it's where you get to your 2-high structures, teams will start thinking about putting him at the nickel or possibly a field spot. But I think there's no doubt he's a day one starter and a top 20, top 25 pick.
What are your thoughts on?
I think just tailing what Coach Dunn said, it's kind of just about how you want to use him. Honestly, I think if you're going to be playing more zone, cover 3, maybe some cover 1 things, I would definitely think he should be. He's definitely up there. He's just a smart ball player. He knows what he's doing out there. He understands concepts, understands just grass, and it's honestly probably a player that would honestly bring up probably other players around them. Just kind of, I know it's kind of crazy to say as a rookie, but I think he just understands the game a little bit different, knowing his strengths and weaknesses, knowing what he can do on the field, being a little bigger body as a corner, and still being able to run that 4.42 is pretty crazy. So I think he's a pretty.
He also played returner too.
Yeah, dominant returner.
Yeah, really great returner. So he could also maybe bring that to an NFL team if that's something they're looking to do. He can line up in multiple positions. Do you think that he'll play corner, or do you think that he could potentially be moved to safety later in his career?
Again, yeah, I think he's got the ability to play all of it. It's just a matter of where he ends up. If he ends up in a quarters-based team, my opinion, I think his best spot's a nickel. He could play the boundary corner if you're playing like some cover 6. If you're a team like Philadelphia, he's money. If you're a cover 3 team, I don't think you need him at safety or nickel. I think you keep him on the perimeter.
Mm-hmm. Philadelphia is actually a team that I say could benefit from him.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great fit.
His depth around the DB room You know what I'm saying? Multiple positions, things like that. I think they could definitely benefit from him. And also the Chargers and
Yep.
and the Ravens. I actually heard the Ravens were talking to him.
Yep.
Because they just lost their safety. Maybe Geno Stone.
Yeah, Geno Stone.
Yeah, they just lost his safety. Marlon Humphrey's been he's been trailing down a little bit, you know, so they could also benefit from
His game actually kind of reminds me of a guy that starts for the Ravens right now, Brandon Stevens. If you guys have watched him play at all, very
Number
physical
21,
guy
right?
that was a safety that actually moved to the perimeter to play. I think he's actually got a very similar height, weight, speed profile as Cooper. So I think that's obviously you look at the Ravens secondary; they want big bodies and they want to beat people up. I think Cooper kind of fits them.
Yeah, I think him and Kyle would be good in the secondary
Would be
together.
tough.
for sure.
That's crazy.
Would be tough.
Young but smart.
That's where I want Mike to go to.
Ooh,
Put
Mike.
Mike in
But
that
he
ring.
look like he belong in the Ravens.
We
jersey.
might as well talk about Mike too. Corner for Michigan,
Yep.
number 0.
Yep.
He plays in the slot and outside,
Mhm.
both ways. What do you guys think about his game? Where could he potentially be? First round pick.
That lead off high.
Yeah, he probably the stickiest player in the draft, man. He probably the stickiest player in the draft, best feet in the draft. And people don't know this is only, I believe it's only his second year at corner. He was a wide receiver, so that kind of shows his ball skills as well as being able to predict routes and what's about to go on. So, I mean, he's a player any team needs, bro. Any team, he's one of those players. Any team drafts him, it's a great pick for him.
Yeah, in my opinion, everybody obviously falls in love with the top 10 talents, but he's my favorite player in the draft. Like I said, there's not a situation where I think, unless you're taking him in the top 5, where I feel like it's a reach. Because like Jihad said, I think he's a plug-and-play guy in any system. I think he's day one, a top 3 to 4 nickel in the league, and will be the best. I 100% believe if you tell me any guy in this draft class ends up the best player in his position, I would have my money set on Mike to be the best nickel in the NFL within the next 2 to 3 years. Very raw to the position, only playing 20, 25 games at DB. And he was a dominant
crazy.
player his first year and was arguably the best DB in college football this year in his second year. Elite ball production, elite toughness, elite physicality, even though he's only a 5'9", 185, 190. Plays much bigger. You see him sticking the running back, Trevin Henderson from Ohio State in the flat. I think he does it all, and I think he makes your defense, one, very competitive from a makeup standpoint. He's a very feisty dude, and I think he brought a lot of energy to that national championship defense in Michigan. But 2, he's a very versatile chess piece that a creative D coordinator can move all over.
So I got a question. Realistically, do you think he'll go top 2 when it comes to corners?
Mike?
Mhm.
Oh, no.
I don't think he will because I don't think NFL teams will feel the value in him playing on the perimeter. I think he can do it. I don't think he's got the high-end traits that the other guys have strictly from being 5'9" and 180. There's just not many guys.
He don't got the, you know what I'm saying, the sexy measurables and the guy that you want to throw out there, you know what I'm saying? But when he is out there, you know,
He's
like
a playmaker.
he's a playmaker. He's going to do his job, he's a playmaker.
And it's crazy because you mentioned he was only playing for 2 years. This is really his floor that we're saying right
Exactly.
now.
Yeah.
Like, we haven't seen his potential
At all.
because he hasn't been working at this his whole life. Like he just started this, and he's already this.
He was a
good,
good
so-
receiver, too.
Really good receiver.
Yeah.
I think he's Kenny Moore year
Yeah.
2.
Mhm.
And Kenny Moore is, like I said earlier, one of the most underrated DBs in the league. He fits that Mike Hilton, Kenny Moore, undersized,
Yeah.
just
A
a
dog.
dog,
Yeah,
man. Just a
absolutely.
dog. He's going to do his job every play. He's going to contribute in the run and pass games. He's going to be a matchup nightmare for slots in the league. So I think he's an all-pro type player.